Okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what's going on right now in my life, and this is what's happening in the legal system right now as we speak. I'm being charged with a probation violation. I've been on probation for 3 years. I'll be off of probation next year, December of this year. I'll be off probation. Okay, from my charges. Right, my charges were child endangerment, and I'm going to show you a timeline real quick of what happened during that time. And it's not all the paperwork, but I'm going to just go over some really key fucking evidence and some really key moments that basically is going to prove that Shasta County District Attorney's Office, as well as our Reading Police Department and Shasta County Superior Court, knew what was going on with my kids and being abused. And I was basically trying to get help from the State Attorney General's office, and the county knew that because they were on my phone, right? And they were basically listening to our conversations and everything. And so all the things that were happening up until that point, right? And then the reason why I got arrested in the first place, okay? And then I'll kind of paint you a picture of kind of what was going on. But basically, after 2017 or 2018, I had full custody of all three kids, 2018, 19, and 20. Okay. And when I found out all the information that I needed necessary to prosecute Judge Gibson for molesting my kids, right? That's when like everything started to change in my life and like started getting difficult. And what was happening was Shasta County Superior Court was changing records constantly, trying to get ahead of me because I was trying to get my kids away from them and take them to a doctor to get evaluated. And then that way I could basically prosecute them for all the damages and what had happened to my kids. So this is just a real clear picture of what was going on. So August of 2021, all right, and I'd say July and August of 2021, I had filed emergency custody orders of my kids, okay? And I was working with a appellate lawyer named Lynette Moore, basically on an appeal on my original criminal charges were a violation of restraining order, and that case was appealed and it was approved, it was granted. And because of that case, right, like if that case was my original first time I got arrested for the violation of restraining order, right, and if that case would have been appealed, then I would basically be cleared of all my charges, exonerated of all my charges from 8 years ago, and I would have had full custody of my kids. So there was multiple things that were going on in multiple ways that everybody was working on, trying to get my kids away from Judge Gibson and away from Shasta County Superior Court so that we could prove basically that the kids were getting abused and molested, okay? So this is received on September 20th, 2021, and what this is petition for writ of habeas corpus, and this was filled out, this was sent to me by my appellate lawyer, and it was filled out by me, and basically she gave me her opening brief to the reasons why this case, was appealed, years ago, and why it was granted or approved, and what happened, and the reason why it didn't get get appealed or whatever was because Shasta County Superior Court didn't want me to have my kids, so I could take them out of here. Okay, so already like the 3rd District of California appellate court, right? They had already decided that the case was appealable, and then also wrote a briefing statement or an opening statement saying that the case needed to be reviewed. Okay, then my appellate lawyer sent me this paperwork. Okay, and this is a petition of writ of habeas corpus, and she asked me to fill it out, and she basically told me all the things that I was going through and everything. She said, just write it out in detail and send her a copy, and she would go over it, right? So I'm going to read you this really quick. This is nuts. September 2021. Jacob Snyder, right? And it shows, like what your conviction was, and it asks statement of reasons for civil commitment, possession of deadly weapon, and violate a domestic violence restraining order. Okay, and then it gives you the penal code, right? Then it says case number, and I put down the case number, right? This case number right here was destroyed, right? Okay, so then it says the times and dates, right? How long your sentence was, completed sentence, and then your attorney, right? My attorney, Joe Hoffman, was worked for the public defender's office, and they fired him. Okay, and then I pled no contest. I pled no contest because I was basically sitting in jail for a year fighting this case. So this is what it says. Grounds for relief: false allegations, misrepresentation, forged documents, submitted as evidence, police officers lied about a prior incident and arrest on 10/20/21, as well as police officers arrested later on charges of murder and sex trafficking, all of which I stated in court. Social workers' reports sealed during trial show evidence of confirmation of situation. So the police officer that arrested me, his name's Jacob Provencio, and if you look online and look at the news, he was actually arrested, I think about 2 years ago, and he was busted for sexual harassment, sexual assault. And what he was doing is he was pulling women over and he was raping them. And that's what happened to my wife. And this person, this police officer, arrested me for a violation of restraining order. Okay, so I was going through divorce, separated from my 3 kids, who were taken out of Sacramento County, abducted by Kendra Snyder and concealed by One Safe Place and local law enforcement. 10/5/16 is the day she left. I filed for divorce online, and Kendra called freaking out. Basically 10/7, she called me. She called me saying to bring her money and kids' clothes. RPD was called by me. Claimed I had she had claimed that I had tried to abduct the kids. Officer Porter told her to go back to Sacramento County with the children to court and file for and get custody orders. Because at that time, on 10/7, she didn't have custody orders of my kids. 10/21, Kendra Snyder, along with One Safe Place assistants, filed protective order or restraining order on me and my children in Sacramento. And then says my children in Sacramento. I had been by my son saying he was being hurt, and I came to Shasta County to pick my kids up, and I was arrested. So what had happened was basically that I'd filed for custody and divorce in Sacramento County right after she had left, and we had court dates, and she didn't show up. So we had 2 court dates, and she didn't show up, and so basically there was a court order, emergency custody orders for her to bring the kids back to Sacramento for court. And on the 7th, when the police showed up there, Officer Porter from Reading Police Department basically told Kendra she needed to go back to Sacramento County, and she needed to have a custody order in order to stay in Shasta County, or she was going to be arrested for abduction. Okay, that was the original police report. Then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call, and my kids were basically crying, saying that they were getting hurt. And I came up here to pick up my kids, and I was arrested by Jacob Provencio. I was arrested on the 24th, I believe, or 25th. The 25th, like a day before we had court in Sacramento, dude. So they already knew there was already custody orders and everything in Sacramento. They already knew all that. Then they knew that we had a court date on the 28th, and they baited me up here, called me up to Shasta County, and arrested me. So luckily, because the state of California and whatever, Sacramento knew what was going on, I got released on the 27th of October, 2016, and I was able to make it to my court date on the 28th. And it was a big deal. Like that court date on the 28th, it was huge because that was emergency custody orders for my kids and the proof that I had already filed for custody and was granted custody of my kids because Kendra didn't show up. So at that point, Kendra should have been arrested, and then there was a protective order already in place. So the restraining order that was filed in Shasta County was basically fabricated nonsense or whatever, and they were basically trying to keep the kids from leaving One Safe Place because they were getting abused and molested. So it was crazy, right? So I got out on the 28th, or on the 27th. I went to court on the 28th, and that court date, I was granted emergency custody orders for my children. And the judge said that One Safe Place and Kendra needed to bring the kids to me because I had emergency custody orders, right? And that there was a restraining order against Kendra now, right? And I swear to God, about 5 days later, so I think November 7th, the judge basically told me to just go home and wait for the kids. On November 7th, I got arrested at my house by a bail bondsman. And they said I did failure to appear for a court date. So this is like a case number information and cases that were going on, and all these numbers would have would be, in the legal system or in the Shasta County Superior Court and would have information. Docket case number 17229, docket destroyed. Case number 7879, docket destroyed. Case information destroyed. 18617, dismissed, later re-prosecuted. 10229 and 617, was convicted, and that was somebody else. It wasn't me. It was the police officers. Case number 6965, re-prosecuted, convicted. I was basically going through a case, and it was dismissed, vacated, dismissed, vacated, dismissed, vacated for a year, and then after a year, it was refiled, re-prosecuted, and I was convicted. 2839, documents forged, backdated, and granted. Shasta County forged documents claiming jurisdiction. That was the original restraining order that was filed. That should have never been filed because there was already emergency custody orders in Sacramento. Shasta County Superior Court, or Shasta County Department, Shasta County Sheriff's Department, records, Sacramento Sheriff's Department records, Shasta County and Sacramento County Social Services Child Protective Social Worker reports, confirming events and timeline, Sacramento Supervisor Court Family Law Facilitator records of all receipts and dates, times, and court appearances, and Kaiser Permanente medical records, one safe place, concealed medical record history. Now, this is important, okay? Because this is basically saying supporting information for your case, for your habeas corpus, and the appeal, right? And I'm giving them the information that they would need necessary in order to investigate this case. And basically, all of these records and all this information is all accessible by any law enforcement agency or DA in California, okay? They would be able to get all this information and records, right, and prove my innocence, and then as well prove the fact that there was Sacramento County social service reports, and they were against Kendra for abusing the kids before she left. That was one of the reasons why she left. So then it goes into grounds two. It says the night of my arrest, phone records, Kendra Snyder wasn't in possession of a phone, one safe place, turn the phone on. So this is what happened, okay? After the court date where one safe place was supposed to bring my kids back, the people that worked there and shit, they were freaking out because they didn't want to get arrested for abduction, right? So they had Kendra sign up for one safe place, and they took her phone, her car keys, her credit cards, everything, right? And then they took our kids, separated Kendra from our kids. She didn't want to go there. She was forced into one safe place, and she was crying and shit. And they had I think a therapist or their psychiatrist, 5150 her, and they put her in a mental hospital for trying to go get back home. Because the kid, originally 8 years ago, Kendra did not want to get in trouble for kidnapping the kids, and she just wanted to go back home with the kids and basically give me the kids because I had the custody orders. But one safe place and their judge and stuff that made the restraining order, they were freaking out, so they fucking forced Kendra into the mental hospital. She says, in possession of the phone, one safe place, turned on the phone, officer involved in my arrest. So basically that was I got a phone call from my kids crying, saying they wanted to get picked up. I fucking drove up here from Sacramento, and I got arrested by Jacob Provencio. Later that night, I was charged with, later on, that police officer was charged with sex crimes and sex trafficking. And that police officer made false reports, accusations, downloaded false data onto Cleat's database information to incriminate me, and forced Kendra to go along with the report by threatening her with prison and threatening her kids. Okay? That's so significant and so crazy, because that is the beginning of this case and the very, very beginning. And I went through 3 or 4 years fighting with him just to get full custody of my oldest and stuff back, right? And this was all going on while people were upset about this case, right? And even this is the appellate court of California, right? So there's I'm kind of just like, hold the phone steady or whatever. I just want everybody to see that. I don't want to read all of it, but basically it goes along with what had happened. Okay, I'm going to do this really quick because I have some other documents that are going to show the timeline. So if you have time to like pause it and kind of go through this, I'd been discriminated against, harassed by law enforcement, and prosecuted. And the reason why was because I had emergency custody orders of my kids. And then they made up some random story saying that I filed custody of my kids and wanted my kids back to Sacramento so that I could hurt them or some shit, or I was trying to kill them and that's why I wanted custody of my kids. It made no fucking sense, dude. It was absolute nonsense, man. And the fact is, and this was really sad, is like at that time, basically the fact is like you have emergency custody orders, you fucking get your kids back, you know, and then if Kendra had a problem with it, she could petition the court or file a declaration or response to request or whatever, right? She could set up another court date down in Sacramento and she could see the kids again. But because all these other people were involved, right, they basically were freaking out. They didn't want to get in trouble for what they were doing. And that forced Kendra into lying for them, you know? And basically what happens next, right, which is really crazy, is the judge that was doing all this stuff and the people that were helping her, like some of them are really good people, but the judge, he's a pedophile piece of shit. He's molested children. And at this point now, like they basically don't want me to have my kids because I would have my kids talk about it, you know, and tell everybody the truth. So September 20th, 2021, right? And at this time, I had been on probation. My probation was terminated, okay? Now, I had filed emergency custody orders on August 1st. Okay, now watch what happens. August 4th, 2 weeks later, right? August 4th, 2021, emergency custody orders, temporary emergency custody orders of my kids. This is the reason why they took my two youngest kids. Listen to this. If any child has any further unexcused absences from school during father's custodial time, as confirmed by the school, fathers to comply with prior custody and visitation orders regarding exchange days and times matter to be heard in shortened time. They took my fucking kids for fucking absences, dude, from school, and they weren't even accurate, dude. They had no evidence to base that on. They got a letter from the Reading School District Superintendent who has resigned in the past 2 years. He resigned and left the area. They fucking got a letter from him saying that my kids were having absences at school. Check this out. Our visitation, this might have the visitation time. Our visitation time and the time that I had my kids, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I had them on the weekends, man. The majority of the time. That was how her work schedule was, and that was how our visitation schedule was. And there's no possible way that the kids would be missing Fridays or Friday and Monday or whatever, right? Enough times to take my kids away, dude. You know? And then this is something that's really crazy. Is like this is what I noticed going through the records and whatnot. You'll see a lot of this, but this is nuts. Like, look, there's a stamp for October 11, 2021, then the 14th, then it says received on the 1st. Then it says it's filed on the 4th. Then it says that it was stamped on November 15, 2021, then scratched out, and then October 4th, 2021. Now, in my mind, or like in the way that I see these things, or however you want to call it, like, dude, this was filed or filled out on November 15, 2021. That's not a mistake. That's somebody fucking that prepared this document and they put that there. Then somebody went back through, changed it to the 4th, crossed it out, changed it to the 4th, and then put this here filed on the 4th, and then put these other stamps. And then the proof of this being like, you know, obviously suspicious or whatever, or obviously changed, is like, look, they're just stamping dates, random dates, dude, you know? Like what the hell are they talking about, right? And then it says visitation time and child custody. Okay, this is their grounds to take my two youngest kids away from me, and I had full custody of my oldest son because he was being abused at her house, right? And then this says right here, change from the joint legal and physical, and then it says here, the visitation time with Kendra Wednesday through Saturday with mother, week 2 Wednesday Sunday with mother. Now I'll tell you right now, that is not the right visitation schedule, and I'll show you our original schedule, but that would all be in court orders and documented and stuff like that. And what I asked for originally from the very beginning, I said, okay, give me the absence list. Give me the list of the days that you're saying that my kids were missing days, because this is the reason. This is the fucking only reason why they fucking had to file emergency custody orders, dude. That is so insane. Like if you look up on the law of why to file emergency custody orders, you have to have a significant reason, dude. And missing school days is not a significant reason. And basically it was because I was trying to take my kids to the doctor and have them evaluated because my kids were getting molested. And then it says right here, and then this signature right here, that's not her signature, dude. Isn't that insane? Like, this is what I'm talking about with the documents being forged and everything. And then what's sad, dude, is the only reason why this didn't get investigated by the DA or by police officers or whatever, what have you, right, is because they know the truth. So if I'm telling everybody, man, this is forged documents, they're unlawful, and this, it's unlawful custody orders and whatever, and this is not her signature, right? Then the judge and the DA are saying, oh, we don't know what he's talking about. I don't know. Well, we never been charged with any crime, or nobody's ever been arrested for it. Well, no shit, man, because you're the fucking DA and you're the one that files charges. No shit, you don't want to fucking file charges against yourself or the judge, right? And not only that, but the police officers as well, right? And then look, let me show you that real quick. That's her original signature, dude. It looks nothing like that. Look at that way the S is like pointed down in the little small like SMYDER, right? And then look at that, dude. It's totally different, And then so this is the emergency custody orders that took my two youngest kids, and then the declaration that was prepared after that, right? And it's total fucking horse shit. It's just total nonsense, right? So I'm pissed off, right? Like, I got full custody of my oldest son. The police are freaking out, right? Everybody's freaking out. I'm calling the DA every day, right? Freaking out. This is filed Office of Civil Rights Division, Civil Rights and Consents and Religious Freedom Discrimination Complaint Form. So it's religious and then freedom and then discrimination, right? It's not religious freedom discrimination. It's a whole entire civil rights complaint. And it was filed with the Department of Health and Human Services, obviously because social services, and obviously because they're the only ones that have the authority to take children away. Judges do not have the authority to take children away, by the way, or police. Only Health and Human Services, okay? And this was a civil rights complaint that was filed with the state of California, okay? And it's given the information in one safe place as well. And then this is all the police reports for the evidence to support that civil rights violation. Okay, it was filed on 10/5/21. Dude, this emergency custody order was filed on the 4th or whatever, or November, right? Filed on the 4th, and I had already filed a civil rights complaint, right? Not only that, but I had filed a habeas corpus on September, right? Now you're seeing the timeline of what's going on. Okay, now. So because I had my oldest son full time, and because I, had my two youngest kids, and I was the one that had the medical insurance for the kids. Okay, and then this is the proof of that right here. This is more proof that that is perjury, because in the Shasta County Superior Court case files, it says that Kendra was the only one that had insurance. The reason why they said that was because they didn't want the state of California and everybody to know that I was the one that had the insurance, and I was trying to take the kids to the doctor, dude. And so basically they said, oh, Kendra's the one that had the kids the whole time and had insurance the whole time, and it was all bullshit. Let me show you this really quick. Effective 10/1/21. Okay? I had changed the medical care provider from Shasta Community Health to Hill Country Community Clinic. Okay? This is partnership, right? I crossed out the ID number. Look at the date, okay? The date of birth is mine, right? And then look. Every kid, dude, all my kids, Hill Country Community Provider, Hill Country Community Clinic, Hill Country Community Clinic, Hill Country Community Clinic. Why would I do that on October 1st, dude, or before that? The reason why was because I knew my kids were getting molested and getting abused, and Shasta Community Health was helping cover it up with One Safe Place, with Shasta County Superior Court, with Child Protective Services, right? And the DA, right? And they control the fucking records, man. They control all the police reports and all the records, and whoever gets arrested and whoever gets investigated, they control all that. So I'm basically, all I'm doing is trying to just gather documentation of what I'm doing, or keep record and documentation of everything. I can't charge them with crime, dude. I can't make the police go and fucking arrest the DA for abduction, right? But check this out. I changed the medical care provider from Shasta Community Health to Health in County, Hill County Community Clinic, because I wanted to take my kids to another doctor. And I knew already that Shasta Community Health was covering for them, right? Basically covering for what happened to them at One Safe Place, right? Okay, now, for 6 months, from October, November, December, January, they wouldn't allow my two youngest kids to talk to me anymore on the phone or anything. My kids were getting abused over at Kinder's house. Okay, this is called grooming, and it's called child abuse. Like it's child abuse and torture and sexual abuse. But what they'll do is they basically separate and segregate your kids from you and won't allow you to talk to them. And then that way, they can control like what your kids are doing and whatnot. And they're basically abusing them the whole time, right? And I had full custody of my oldest son. Okay, so check this out. I had full custody of my oldest son. I was calling the DA and fucking the police department all the time, trying to get a hold of my two youngest kids. The fucking judge, this fucking pedophile weirdo piece of shit, was basically just like, oh, he's crazy. He has visitation, but he never set it up, which made no sense, dude, right? Because I had full custody of my oldest son, and I was calling the DA all the time, right? Fucking notice of hearing, dude, filed on fucking February 3rd, and this was the reason why 2 RPD officers showed up at my house and took my oldest son. Temporary restraining order, dude. For my oldest, man. And my oldest had lived with me, dude, for 2 years or whatever, because he was getting abused over there. So now it's like now the fucking DA and right RPD, they all fucking knew what was going on. They obviously knew fucking that I was fighting with the habeas corpus and civil rights complaints, right? And I was trying to get help from outside the area. And they took my 2 youngest kids and wouldn't let me talk to them or nothing, right? And then all of a sudden, man, 2 RPD officers, no social worker, okay? 2 RPD officers showed up at my house and took my oldest son and filed based off a restraining order, filed restraining order. That's fucking unheard of, dude. Now, let me kind of try to explain this a little bit, but if you're a lawyer, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to have criminal charges filed against you, right? And convicted and whatnot for child abuse in order for the state of California to take your 2 children away. That's fucking the law, okay? The fucking state of California can't just take your kids away, dude. You have to have they have to have a good reason and charges against you, okay? And this judge, he's a fucking sociopath, but he's a fucking pedophile, right? What he does is he uses temporary restraining order, and he'll put the kids involved in the restraining order, and then that way this is enforceable by law. And then if he's in charge of the case where he basically can grant it to Kendra or whatever, and then the cops have to follow along with it because it's a court order, right? But there's no charges or anything filed against you. So whatever he said and whatever, created this restraining order, whatever he says is basically fucking, you're fucked, right? Because it's a temporary restraining order. And you have a court date to go to and argue with him about it. And I did, but he didn't do anything about it. He didn't listen. And I took my oldest son with me that day. You know what I mean? I took my oldest son with me. Well, here's the thing. What's really crazy is that most of these court orders, right? They all have to be certified, a clerk's certificate like that. And check this out. This is what this judge did. So this is certified by the clerk and filed on February 3rd, right? And what he had someone else do is this. That's another judge, 2-3, Judge Ryan, Summer Ryan. He had another judicial officer grant the order because of what he was doing, and he didn't want to get in trouble. So he was already under suspicion for the case, and he was already told that he couldn't be involved in the case anymore. He had another judge step in. Now this is crazy, right? So February, I get my oldest son taken away. Now he's got his own phone and shit. He's 14, 15 years old. He's trying to call me. The school from the Anderson Middle School principal called me, said that he's trying to run away from the school and get home. All this shit, right? I'm freaking out, right? March, I get fucking arrested. Or March, I went to the school to pick him up because the case was dismissed, and I got arrested by APD, right? Apparently, they said that there's some warrant for my arrest or something. I don't know, right? While I was sitting in jail, okay, listen to this. While I was sitting in jail, I was charged with child endangerment, right? This is grievance procedures and challenging reference to child abuse index. Now, check this out, dude. This is nuts. This is gnarly. Now, notice of child abuse in central index list. Okay, now this judge has used this social worker in this case, right? Filed charges against me for child endangerment, right? And then put Health and Human Services up to basically they had to file this out and fill this out. Now look at what it is, dude. I was arrested on March 3rd. This was dated for April 5th, 2022. I wasn't even charged with the crime yet or anything, dude. Let me explain this, okay? I was in jail, arrested for child endangerment. This is a notice of child abuse central index, Okay. And basically it says report of suspected child abuse maintained by DOJ or whatnot, right? And it says indexed and dated on April 5th. Okay. I was already sitting in jail for a month, man. And then on top of that, I wasn't charged until December, November 2022 or whatever, right? And you only have 5 days. Dude, you only have 5 days to file a grievance. It says right here, within 5 days, submit an individual's grievance in this case. Notice of child abuse index, grievance procedures for challenging the reference, and request for grievance hearing. I had 5 days. Do you understand when I got this? I was sitting in jail, and April 5th this was filed. Do you know when I received this paperwork? November 2022 when I got out of jail. I called to fucking file the grievance, and they said it was too late. Can you believe that? Unreal, right? God bless. Love you.